All right. We'll just keep admitting everybody as you come along. If you can hear me and Lori, then that's great. You might be muted upon entry, just so everybody understands. But we'll get everybody sorted out, so you can also post your questions inside the chat in our Zoom meeting here. And that way Lori can begin to field some of these questions, and I'll be able to start answering some of those burning questions about these free listings. And if need be, if anybody is having trouble with if anybody's having trouble with the chat, the group chat in the Zoom meeting, we might be able to unmute individuals one at a time, so you can ask questions live, or you can pose those questions to Lori and we can begin to get those answers. We're just waiting for more people. I'm watching more people jump in here.
Yeah, I think it's
everybody.
At some point we may want to unmute everybody, but at this point it'd be a lot more orderly if they put questions in the chat. Which,
yeah,
interestingly enough, do you see anything in there now? Because I see 0, so I don't know if that means.
I just see me. Let me close this and everyone in wait. No, we're going to go to everybody here. Everyone in meeting. Here we go. Sorry.
Aha, there's Ron. Okay, I see that. Yay.
There we go. So as people, like, again, if you can hear me and Lori, we're going to, all your questions can be posted into the Zoom group chat. And Lori's going to field some of those questions and start posing them over to me.
Yes, let's put them on the hot seat so you guys can think about the toughest questions you can ask, so that we all know how to do this when we come away from this, which is really the goal.
Yes, yes, and grill me. Again, if we have questions that sit outside of free Google Shopping listings, if you have questions about Facebook ads, if you have questions about Google Shopping, whatever it might be, if you feel like you don't necessarily have a question about the free listings, please ask the question. I'm happy to answer anything that I certainly know that I can potentially shed some light on.
Oh, and to be clear, your app works with BigCommerce, Shopify, and Magento too?
Correct. But we can also support just about any e-commerce platform.
Okay, that's actually a really good question, and I'll ask it a little bit later when we have more people in here.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Because you have to have a feeds, and I know there are many feed services out there, but I also know yours is one of the more affordable ones and has some extra options, which are kind of cool. So.
Yep. And again, if you're just joining us, we're just admitting everybody as they come along. Please use the chat feature inside our Zoom meeting here, and you'll be able to ask Lori any of the questions that you've been waiting to ask me, of course, and then we'll start fielding all these questions for everybody. So, and we just I know we have a couple more people jumping in here.
Yeah, and I'd say let's give it 2 minutes, and then if you
sure.
could start with an overview of what this program is and how it differs from Google Shopping.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And for everybody that can hear me, again, my name is Anthony Capetola. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Sales and Orders. We're a BigCommerce Elite partner, along with a Shopify partner, Magento partner, and essentially we have been building, managing, and helping e-commerce businesses succeed online through channels like Google and Microsoft, or Bing and Facebook, since probably around late 2008 or so. We first began as one of the very first build and design firms for BigCommerce, back when we were named New Dynamics, and essentially we were building between 100 to 300 BigCommerce stores a month on average, Lori. And when the advent of free Google Shopping, well, back in 2012, Google Shopping itself was completely free. It was 100% free. In fact, it was known back then as, some people might remember it as frugal. It was also known as Google Product Base, for example. And essentially, back then, e-commerce businesses could just upload a feed to Google, and it was very much like a sitemap. Essentially, it would just index your products and showcase them on the search engine. But obviously, since then, they've incorporated that. They, at the time, had removed free listings and moved on to make this entirely pay-per-click or PPC, which is now known as PLAs or shopping ads. And those shopping ads are now primarily what takes up the above the fold results in Google. All right, just somebody, Dan's jumping in here, submitting people as they come along. And right now, of course, absolutely, again, back to it. So, and our app and our company, essentially, where we help merchants scale and manage ads across, again, shopping ads across Google, Bing, Facebook. And additionally, we also offer an array of managed services and ancillary products such as our own affiliate marketing network internally. We can help drive and increase sales across those channels. And we also offer repricing. So that's actually fully integrated with stores like Magento and Shopify and BigCommerce, where you can actually utilize our platform to spy on your competitors in a way and then reprice your products in real time against that competitor analytics. So you say you have 20 products that you'd like to lower your pricing on against this particular competitor. You can set a rule to say, I'd like to lower my prices by $2 and ship that right back into for example, my BigCommerce store. So you can actually begin to become the more attractive offer in the SERPs or generally on your website as well.
Cool. Yeah. So that's really interesting. So obviously, let's start with what is the difference between this program and a standard Google Shopping ad, both in terms of eligibility. Do you have anything you can clue us into in terms of visibility, and what should they know? You know, is this a no-brainer to participate, or are there, stores that are more likely to see benefit from it?
Yeah, sure, of course, Lori. So, I mean, we're still in those early stages. This is really it's brand new. It just came out a few weeks ago, really, once you really kind of boil it down. And to start, the big difference between shopping ads and free listings on Google Shopping is that shopping ads is entirely an advertising format within Google Ads. So it's any merchant can upload their feed to Google Merchant Center, which then they use to fuel PLAs or shopping ads on Google, which you essentially paying a cost per click for those ads to appear on the main Google search engine. Now, shopping ads themselves still appear other places as well. So they can appear in Google Search. They can appear in the Google Shopping tab as well. Additionally, they can appear in the Images tab, even on YouTube and other display partner networks within Google. And essentially, if you have these product ads on Google, a single click on this ad will lead to your website, and you're paying a nominal fee for that. You're paying a few pennies, essentially, to drive traffic to your website. And then shoppers who click on those ads and reach your store can begin to purchase those products or, of course, add more to their carts and increase their average order value. These free listings are essentially a no-brainer for any merchant that is eligible or allowed to work with Google Merchant Center. So while there are very few restrictions for what types of merchants can utilize these programs, the free listings really can be a no-brainer for anybody. Essentially, if you're already or if you're thinking about uploading a feed to Google Merchant Center to begin something like shopping ads, and from what we understand from our Google SPM team is that now all merchants are immediately automatically eligible for surfaces across Google. And that's a unique program within Merchant Center that has actually been around for quite some time. So most merchants don't know that surfaces across Google came out in early 2019, early last year. I think back in February is when it first released. It actually may have been 2018. I have to double check my numbers there. But essentially it was organic listings on the search or the all tab on Google. It was then later enhanced for apparel and accessories merchants, which essentially you would have product listings appear on Google search, And then they advanced that for certain verticals with like knowledge card information, things like popular products, for example. You can actually see those now. You can search on Google and using the right search terms. You might want to search like men's running shoes or men's outdoor wear or something along those lines. And you might search all the way down, and about the middle of the page on Google, you'll start to see those organic listings that they began to enhance. Now, this latest announcement for free listings on Google Shopping has essentially taken the shopping tab on Google and made it almost entirely free listings. The product ads or shopping ads are still above the fold. They still take up the first, the larger format and at the top and are showcased before any other results. Those are typically followed by results on shopping actions, which I can explain after this, of course, Lori. And then below that, almost the entirety of the shopping tab on Google is now these free listings, which essentially after you've uploaded your feed to Merchant Center and the program surfaces across Google is enabled, or it's automatically now enabled, your products have an opportunity to show up on Google, and any clicks on these product listings are 100% free. And that's essentially where that free, and Google's calling that unpaid. So if you look in Merchant Center now, you'll see reporting for unpaid clicks on these new listings.
So, and I don't think I'm the only one who's got some significant confusion here because I don't manage ads anymore. So we have the standard Google shopping ads, which everybody, I assume everybody in the room is familiar with. We have Google surfaces, which I'm still a little fuzzy on. Is that the one that requires you check out on Google?
No, not at all. That is shopping actions.
Okay, now you understand where I'm leading this. So we have actions, surfaces,
and ads.
PPC, and then the free listings. So can you please clarify that? Oh,
yes,
and,
of course.
And Manufacturer Center, which I also know.
Oh, yeah, of course. I can get into Manufacturer Center as well. And really just going to really highball it here for you. Shopping ads, which most people are going to be familiar with, are the product ads that you would be running through shopping campaigns in Google Ads. Surfaces across Google is essentially those free listings, Lori.
Okay.
Now, surfaces across Google is simply the program within Merchant Center that you will enable and will allow your products to show up on Google in organic listings on the All tab, for example. But now this biggest announcement obviously was that the shopping tab on Google is now primarily consistent of those free or unpaid listings. And then shopping actions is essentially Google's marketplace solution. It's similar to Amazon, for example. You know, Amazon's a marketplace. You partner with Amazon, you upload your products to Amazon, you can begin selling on Amazon, or even, again, they have their own internal, sponsored product listings or product ads. But in Google's case, you have to meet certain requirements. You essentially list your products on Google Shopping. And I know it's all called Google Shopping, so it's even more confusing, right? But essentially, Google Shopping is considered in tandem with shopping actions. So shopping actions is, again, you upload a feed to Google, you enable the program, you have to meet certain criteria, and essentially you're paying for, in comparison, if you're paying shopping ads a cost per click or a click on your ads, in shopping actions, it's a cost per sale model. So you're essentially giving Google a commission, very similar to the way you do with Amazon, on the purchases that are made through their shopping channel. And if you were to look at the shopping tab on Google now, at the very top are always going to be shopping ads. 9 times out of 10 in the middle will be shopping actions or the buy on Google results. And then below that, taking up almost everything from there down would be those free listings.
Oh my goodness. So there may actually be valid reasons to be on all of them.
For the right merchants doing and who want to expose their products to more shoppers, more search results, there's certainly no reason not to try to get involved in each program and then to measure results based on each program and see what's going to be the most beneficial to you. Obviously, surfaces across Google and the free listings and everybody should be taking advantage of this because it's 100% free, no strings attached. Send up a feed to Merchant Center, enabled program, done, right? Then we're already seeing clicks on these unpaid listings across many different industries. So it's certainly already bringing about some results. Shopping actions is entirely different, and it's really, like, to boil it down, as an order management system. And essentially, you're giving Google inventory to list on their marketplace that they then shoppers will then purchase that product on Google's hosted checkout, and then you're still in charge of fulfillment though. You're very much in charge of fulfillment, and Google has some staunch rules for shopping actions, which they kind of dub, and they actually tier retailers. So if you're uploading your products to Google, you're enabling shopping actions, you could be marked as a top retailer, as meeting standards, or even below standards for shopping actions, in which case they might actually drop you from the program, or and certain things you have to meet for shopping actions are completely different compared to shopping ads and free listings. You have to meet item defect rates, have to be below a certain rate. Shipping defect, this quote unquote defect, or like issues within shipping or fulfilling your products and getting them out to merchants. But essentially, it's like when a shopper purchases a product on shopping actions, like we're talking about now, they are purchasing through Google, and then you see that order come in through Merchant Center and also through some third-party platforms. We're working on a closed beta offering for shopping actions right now. It's not open yet, but it's almost there. It's essentially order management, be able to shift those orders from Merchant Center back to your store, so you can easily fulfill and keep track of them. And then once you've fulfilled that order and you've sent that out to the merchant, Google will return other information based on the experience what that shopper has had with you. Again, shipping defect, item defect rates, things like that.
So there is no current easy order management system for Google Actions?
There are a few, or there are true Actions partners, and again, we're working very closely with Google on a closed beta for this. I don't want to speak to other platforms that I'm not 100% familiar with. I know from conversations with other big commerce store owners, even Shopify store owners and Magento store owners, that many of the platforms or programs out there that are available are not really up to snuff. They're not working. They don't work 100% the way they want them to. Then again, what app does? But the feedback that I've gotten from many big commerce merchants has been that they haven't really found a very consistent platform to be able to deliver that type of order management experience.
Cool. And I don't know if this is aimed specifically at your program or just in general, so you could probably should answer it both ways. But, these are related questions. Number one is, how do you upload your feed to the Merchant Center? And the other one is trying to understand the basic process of how to get your product up, what's free and what costs additional money.
Sure, of course. So for any merchant that would like to advertise or list their products for free or enter shopping actions program, essentially, everybody needs a feed. And a feed is essentially a collection of products with select attributes that are required by Google that you upload to Google Merchant Center. There are 100 different ways to upload a feed to Merchant Center. You can do this manually. You can use a file such as a CSV or even a text file and upload directly to Merchant Center and let Google automatically handle that. Or you can utilize platforms like ours to simplify and scale that process for you. So essentially, we connect with a platform like BigCommerce or Shopify and Magento. We ingest your product information already preset, knowing exactly what's going to be needed for Google. We configure all of that information and we ship that out to Google all via API. So it absolves you of the need to generate files, upkeep your files, or maintain, your product attributes as we sync, automatically. For example, every 12 hours, we call back to BigCommerce and we say what product updates occurred, and then we send those programmatically out to Google and other platforms such as Microsoft and Facebook.
And I should let you know, if you've not had any experience, at least with shopping ads, that among the attributes Google wants to know is if that item's in stock, which is why this can become a pain if you're trying to manage this manually through a spreadsheet. And they also want to know if you have a sale, when that sale starts and when it ends, how much shipping costs. The data feed is more than just a photo, a description, and a link.
Yeah, of course. There's an extensive list of required and optional attributes in a feed. And again, what our app essentially does is it collects that information and it aggregates it and puts it into the format that's understandable by Google Merchant Center. And in our case, it's entirely via API as opposed to constantly having to send out a file like Lori meant, or trying to upkeep a file. And those attributes that are in a feed vary based on type of merchant. So apparel and accessories merchants, for example, are required to enter additional attributes, such as color and size. And an example of a BigCommerce store, we actually take that information from options and pull that information in, organize it on a per product level, and then send it out to Google. And then we provide diagnostics and feed health information to allow you to determine whether your products are disapproved by Google, in which case you need to make corrections to get your products approved. And once products are approved in your feed, you are essentially eligible for any program that Google allows based on what industry you fit in. So for example, if you're selling auto parts, you're required to submit this information in your feed. Google collects that information, and then you can start running shopping ads through Google Ads. You can enable or automatically be enabled for surfaces across Google. And as long as your products are approved, they can begin showing up on Google for free. And in shopping actions, you have to enable shopping actions, go through the various steps outlined in Merchant Center to submit information to Google that they require to then be in that cost per sale or marketplace model as well.
So, and I'm more familiar with the BigCommerce app. I know you also work with Shopify. So, please answer this in terms of the different platforms, because I know we have people on both platforms,
yeah, sure.
Possibly even some others here.
I'm seeing the questions. They're good questions. I love all the questions.
Yeah, they're really awesome questions. So I have the app installed. So actually on BigCommerce, I don't know the answer to this too. It used to be, when they had their native integration, that you had to go ahead and map your categories in the product admin and then check off which products you wanted sent to the feed. Is that still the case, or is that being managed in your app? And how does that work on Shopify?
Sure, of course. So in BigCommerce, those fields were essentially deprecated along with. So what had happened was Google actually had their own solution that connected to BigCommerce, Magento, and PrestaShop. And BigCommerce had their own internal XML solution as well. Those features were deprecated, and BigCommerce chose to partner with us to facilitate the product feeds for Google, Microsoft, Facebook, for example. And essentially now in BigCommerce, you don't need to enable products for Google Shopping. Our app automatically imports all active, visible products from a BigCommerce store and ingests that information and immediately begins shipping out to channels like Google. You don't need to enable anything in BigCommerce. You just need to ensure that your product information in your BigCommerce store is up to date and accurate. Important things such as your UPCs or your GTINs, you want to make sure that those are formatted correctly. But we're essentially taking that all from your store and not forcing you to, essentially edit or modify things in our feed in our app unless you actually need to.
Which does raise another question. Do they need to have a UPC, a GTN, or can they use just a part number, manufacturer brand and part number? What are the requirements there in terms of data?
Yeah, sure, of course. So Google recently lightened up the restrictions on GTIN. So GTIN, or a global trade item number, is essentially a collection of values, and they're barcodes. UPCs, EANs out of Europe, JAN, or even if you sell books, for example, ISBN. That's a type of GTIN, essentially. They're no longer required. However, when you do have them, Lori, they do. Google takes that into account, and your product ads and your listings have more of an opportunity to show up in the search results because you're including all of that data. Typically, and for the longest time, Google essentially required 3 distinct attributes that are considered like unique product identifiers, and that was brand, MPN, and GTIN. But now it really is only brand and manufacturer's part number. Now, in some industries, an MPN, or the manufacturer's part number, is a universally identifiable number. It's machine parts, auto parts will all generally have a universally identifiable manufacturer's part number. However, if you don't have an MPN, or your products don't necessarily require an MPN, Google still needs the value, but you may not necessarily have that in your BigCommerce or your Shopify store, and our app automatically appends your product SKU and utilizes that for MPN. In those cases where you don't actually require that attribute, it could be a fictitious, on my MPNs could literally be 123, 1234, 12345, 123-A, and Google's not really gonna care either way.
Cool.
It's when those numbers are wrong, formatted incorrectly, or are missing, for example, in a UPC, you need leading zeros in a UPC, for example. If you're missing those, Google won't necessarily be able to recognize that it's an accurate UPC code. Right,
which is a bear if you've downloaded a spreadsheet. Fair question. Is merchants defined as a physical location, or do you have to have, well, in this case it says Shopify, but any online store?
Yeah, so essentially, if you are a online store, you are eligible for programs such as Google Shopping, these free listings on Shopping Now, and Shopping Actions. Physical stores without any kind of online presence are not eligible for these types of programs. But there are, again, like platforms like BigCommerce and Shopify are very easy ways to get online, to go from offline to on, and to begin to be able to advertise and start generating traffic for your online store.
Oh God, I just had another good one. So, restricted items. What items can you not, because that's a much shorter list, can you not pop on the platform, and does it vary between their different programs?
Yeah, so oddly enough, there are products that I think many people would consider like restricted in a way. So things like alcohol, even adult products, for example, but they're actually allowed on Google, and you just have to configure certain settings for it. If you sell adult related products, there's a setting within Merchant Center to say these are adult products, and then Google recognizes that and allows those to be sold. Same with alcohol. It's a very similar situation. If you're selling alcoholic beverages or alcoholic accessories, same situation. Allowed on Google, you do have to tag them as adult oriented, essentially. But what Google doesn't like are, sorry, Larry, but Google doesn't like things are like, smoking products. One of the big caveats, I think, for many merchants are, big rise in CBD products, or hemp products, for example, not allowed. Firearms, explosives, dangerous products, all things that are not necessarily allowed on Google. Supplements are hard, but technically still allowed as long as you're not making false medical claims. Or false medically beneficial claims. So there are many merchants who sell supplements or even dietary products, dietary supplements, protein powders, protein supplements, workout supplements, things along those lines, all allowed as long as your product, as long as the information on your product is not deemed suspicious, so to speak. So for example, you submit and a perfect example, I had been helping a merchant onboard their feed, and most of their products were approved. They had a handful of products that were not. A nasal spray was being flagged for, violation of shopping ads policies, and the merchant had no idea why, because it was a nasal spray, which would normally be allowed. And then I carefully went through and looked at their product descriptions, and there was some kind of erroneous claim that it might help with your marriage problems. And I'm dead serious, and I hope I get I'm glad I hope everybody got a laugh out of that one, because this is a true story. But that supposedly would help with their problems in their marriage. To which case I said, well, that is a false medical claim and therefore a violation of shopping ads policies.
Wow, they caught that, huh?
Google's technology is very smart.
So editing the field, number one, the question is, can you edit the field? And two, how would you accomplish this? And I'm going to add to it, why would you want to edit your feed?
Yeah, sure, of course. So yes, you can edit your feed. If you're utilizing our app, you can do so with our modified products tool within the feed tool. Out of the box, for free, there are a number of distinct attributes that you can modify. What you can modify versus what you can in our app is simply a matter of an add-on for us. We do have our advanced modify add-on. So if you upgrade, and it's only $20 a month. And to put that in perspective, like many other feed platforms or agencies, the cost to be able to have those modifications or have those modifications made for you tends to be pretty expensive. We want to keep it very low cost and affordable. But a couple reasons why you'd want to alter your feed might be one might be you want to enhance your product data. So Google uses certain signals for not only shopping ads, but also these free listings to determine where you rank in the search results. The primary items that Google is taking into account are your product titles, your product descriptions, and then one that's typically not necessarily considered is something called product type. And that's an attribute that essentially is user defined. But for example, if you are, Google is all about search terms or search terminology and utilizing keywords to match the results based on a consumer or shopper that's searching for a particular item. So if I search for Nike men's shoes, obviously your product title and your product description, as long as it has those key terms as front loaded as possible, then you're more likely to show up. And this is also for shopping ads, for example, incorporates your bidding or the cost per click that you're willing to. So the more you tend to bid, the more broad of a term you might show up for, versus the less you bid, the more specific a term you might show up for. It's not that if you bid more, you actually show up more, which is a lethality, or is kind of is a blanket concept that I think a lot of people associate with bidding on keywords in your text ad campaigns, for example, Lori. If you run text ads in Google and you bid more, you tend to show up higher for those search terms. In Google Shopping, it actually tends to do with what types of terms you're showing up for. So if you bid less, you show up for more specific terms. You bid more, you tend to show up for broader terms. But of course, what powers those results are the keywords within your product titles and your product descriptions primarily. And then product type, which is a user-defined or a merchant-defined value, is if I sell, for example, and I always use this analogy, but if I sell, or this example, if I sell pet products and I sell pet apparel, because who doesn't love to dress up their dogs? I know my mom does. I sell puppy apparel, and I have this whole set of puppy scarves that I have this huge inventory in, and and I want to advertise this because I get a lot of traffic on this organically, right? So if you send your feed up to Google, you can set a product type as puppy scarves, which is not an identifiable value by Google, because they'll just assume this is a pets product in their general categorization. But product type, if you say puppy scarves and somebody searches dog apparel or scarves to my dog, you actually might show up more so than any other merchant that might sell those products, as long as you're including those attributes. So why would you want to modify your feed? Enhance your data. Correct your data. If you're missing attributes because maybe they're just not set up within your BigCommerce store or your Shopify store, for example, you miss those attributes. In our app, for example, if you don't have those attributes, you don't need our app to modify them. You can just go back into BigCommerce, update and fix those things in your store, and then just click one button and it imports to our app and sends to Google within our app. So you can update everything in your store, not necessarily rely on modifying the feed outside of your store. and that way you're not having, you don't necessarily need the add-on, for example. But go ahead, Lori. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, so those deprecated native Google Shopping fields that are in the V2 on BigCommerce, if those have been deprecated and you add things like gender or color, are those still feeding to your app?
So we actually can import them. We work with BigCommerce because here, and I should have said this earlier, but those fields and those that enable for Google Shopping is still in BigCommerce because we've worked with BigCommerce to make sure that they kept them. And essentially, if you were to install our app, or if you're using it now and you live chat with our staff, we will manually turn that on for your store if you're utilizing them. Most merchants are new BigCommerceers are not utilizing them. It's a best practice, for example, Lori, if you're an apparel and accessories merchant, it is by far a best practice to ensure that utilizing options or option sets within BigCommerce for things such as size and color, because those are automatically imported without question and no issues. They're mapped automatically based on those particular attributes, and it absolves you of the need of having to enable your product for Google Shopping, fill out each individual attribute for a given product, and then have to, again, do that on a product-to-product or by-product basis. You can still utilize them, and if you're using our app and you've had them and you have things or you have errors in Merchant Center such as missing color, missing gender, you can reach out to our staff and we'll import them for you. But again, a caveat is that if you're not keeping up with that, if you add new products and forget to add that, you're going to wind up having your feed automatically updated, and then you're going to have missing attributes. The products are going to get disapproved. You have to go back and add them again, and then you have to import and send that back out to Google. Generally, all other attributes are automatically mapped and don't really require any other additional work within BigCommerce, such as those Google Shopping fields. However, for free, you can still utilize a simple rule system in our Modified Products tool to map things like age group and gender. Based on, for example, if all of your men's t-shirts are the SKU, for example, is -M, in some cases you can say filter all my products that contain SKU with -M and map all that to men's. Additionally, we find many merchants doing nowadays is forgoing that and mapping almost everything to unisex. But obviously having those attributes helps to ensure that your product ads are going to show up for more specific terms. So if I'm searching for men's, navy blue t-shirt, I want the term men's to not only be in my product title, but also to be within the the gender attribute in my feed to ensure that I have better search term matching to what the shopper is doing on Google.
Which then raises an additional customization. So let's say I'm wearing rose-colored whatever. I may want that to show up as pink as part of the search, so that if somebody's looking for a pink shirt, my shirt shows up. So good question here. If you're having problems getting some or all of your products to approve, do you have a recommended troubleshooting path?
Just contact our staff. It's 100% free live chat support Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Eastern. Scott, sometimes myself, we have Gio and Steph also on live chat. They'll jump in and help you resolve those issues. They'll guide you on exactly how to fix those problems or fix those issues. Obviously, the biggest problem most merchants are going to face is something of called a suspension, in which case Google finds something incredibly wrong with your feed or your website and says your feed's suspended, in which case you have to actually contact Google, get information as to why they suspended your account and correct those things. But when you have missing data or you have issues in your feed, you should look at your feed diagnostics. If you're using our app, you just tab over to the issues tab, and then you can get a full list of the total number of issues that you're facing, and then also you can import a list of item level issues. So for example, I have missing color on 25 products. I import those issues. I quickly filter based on that particular issue, like missing color, and then I determine what's the best course of action to fix that. If it's an issue in that your store is missing those attributes, you should go back into your BigCommerce store, your Shopify store, and ensure that those attributes are in there. In Shopify against a BigCommerce store, for example, Shopify does a lot of automatic mapping. So you actually have to have variants in Shopify to ensure that things like size and color come through. In BigCommerce, obviously, you have the choice between Google Shopping fields, not necessarily recommended because it's not scalable, or being sure to utilize best practices and option setup for size and color attributes and things along those lines. But obviously, if you have questions or if you're confused about something, just ask our team. We're always there to help.
Cool. Let's see here. I'm just making sure we caught all these questions. Hey guys, if you have any other questions, absolutely keep asking, because
or if you need clarification on a question, if I've answered something, or if I've gotten too technical, or I've made something more complex, that I know I have a tendency to do that sometimes. If some things are so technical when it comes to feeds and Google and all these different programs, that there really is no easy explanation for it. But obviously, if I can provide any clarity, I certainly can.
Let's see here.
I think Joyce just came in with one.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Where would you see these issues on your product? So Joyce, if you are in Merchant Center in Google, so if you're merchants.google.com, there's full diagnostics in there, right? So you'll be able to actually drill down. Now, are they actionable? It's a little bit harder in that interface. Of course, you have to use the reset. You're going back to Merchant Center. Deprecated. Deprecated means it was gotten rid of, Randy. And I'll just answer that real quick. Essentially, they dropped support for that particular service or product or integration. And back to Joyce, you'll utilize diagnostics information within Merchant Center to determine what those issues are. They're pretty laid out, plain and simple. Missing this. Sometimes and there are differences in those types of issues. So some are more severe, some are more general warnings, and others just might be recommendations. Like you've capitalized every word in your product title. That's a recommendation versus you're missing color on 400 products and you need to fix that. In our app, and you're using Sales and Orders, Google Shopping by Sales and Orders in your BigCommerce, or in Shopify, Sales and Orders app, or in Magento, for example, if you're in the feed tool, you're going to go to the issues tab. In the main part of the tool, you're going to see the account level issues, all the issues and the total number of products affected by each individual issue. And then as you scroll down just below that, you'll see the product issues. And the product issues are broken out on a line-by-line basis. So, and it will give you a detailed explanation of what that is. You can even filter. And this is specific to BigCommerce, which I should mention, is that if you import your issues in our app and you see an issue on a particular product, you actually click on that product ID while you're logged into our app and logged into your BigCommerce store. It'll take you to that product in your BigCommerce store to be able to figure out, then to go back and correct a missing data issue. So if it's missing a GTIN, for example, or something along those lines, it'll actually redirect you back to BigCommerce to go and you can go fill that data in.
Cool. Dan has a great question here. What are your thoughts on Google Shopping, where we're driving customers to our website, paid advertising, compared to Google Actions and paying a commission fee? It seems like they're almost counterintuitive.
I wouldn't use the word counterintuitive. I like to use the word augmenting. And another way I like to put it is all of these things should be icing on the cake. When you think of it as shopping ads or Google Shopping campaigns within Google Ads, that should really be your baseline. That should be what you really should start with. Is it counterintuitive? No, it's a different shopping experience. It's kind of like shopping actions is kind of like if your shoppers are basically going to Amazon, in this case Google, and you're paying a cost per sale. And really, Dan, the only thing I can say is that you're going to have to make data-driven decisions. You need to look at your shopping ads on Google and your campaigns to see if you're performing well enough and you're getting a profitable return on ad spend. Same case with shopping actions. If you're driving enough orders through shopping actions, and it makes financial or profitable sense to continue to do so based on how much you're paying out to Google in commission, then it's just another way to get more sales and more traffic to your products, or at least in this case on that hosted environment in Google. And then on top of that, if using the new free Google Shopping listings, again, just no brainer, just do that because it's free.
So, and Dan continued with another great question. Yep. Can you drive both Google Shopping ads and Google Actions for the same SKU? And I'm going to ask, is there a difference in the feed? Do they operate off the same feed?
Yeah, so put it simply, yes, of course you can drive ads and actions and free listings for the same SKU. And is it a different feed? It can be, or it doesn't have to be. When you're working with a solution partner like us, again, we operate entirely off of Google's content API. So there are no files, there are no URLs, there's none of that. We're in a direct communication channel with Google, and there's absolutely no need to download or edit an XML or a CSV or anything like that. Our app is literally just a conduit between your BigCommerce store, your Shopify store, whatever store you're on, conduit between you and channels like Google and Microsoft or Bing and Facebook. You can sell the same products across all different channels. You can have a single feed, like through us, it's through the content API, which means you have one feed that's powering all of those items. You can set up a separate feed for shopping actions, but this will wind up causing you to do a little bit more work on your behalf. You'd essentially, and this is just the way that Google works. Let's just say that Google shopping ads, shopping actions, and free listings are three completely separate programs as they are. If you wanted to do a separate feed for each program, you actually need to change the product ID, which is a required attribute for all feeds to Google, and it's automatically generated by BigCommerce. You're not something you have to edit or do anything in our app for. But if you were to want a separate feed for shopping actions, you have to actually get that feed in a separate format, like a file. If you're also using a content, the API like we do, you have to alter the product ID on that particular product, and then submit that to Google and make sure it's kept up and has certain upkeep to it. Of course, Actions also has some optional attributes such as a quantity. You can actually submit the number of units of a particular SKU that you have to Google, so that they know how much you have. But that also should if you can't keep up with that dynamically or programmatically, you'll wind up causing issues and could potentially sell out of a product and still get results on shopping actions for those products because your inventory was not updating correctly. And then on free listings, again, similar situation. You could set up a separate feed, but honestly, with our app, it's one feed, really simple. We'll submit all the data you need for all three separate programs and absolves you of the need for all those files and URLs and things along those lines.
Cool. Bob has a great question here. Mm-hmm. Do you have an effective method for A/B testing product titles, photos, and descriptions?
So there really is no easy way to do this, Bob. You can, and look, and the reason is A/B testing requires a tremendous amount of data. And a lot of times there's just not enough data to be able to support versus one versus another versus another. What I would say, Bob, is that you would likely have to have, and let's just say, for example, you're using our app and you're submitting a feed to Google. Let's say you want to take your top 10 products in sales and test those, alter your product titles, your photos, and your descriptions, right? You might want to take those and put them into a separate feed and then upload that to Google. And again, you'll need different product IDs in comparison to your primary feed. You will then set up a separate shopping campaign for those particular products and measure performance against how those products were performing previously on your primary setup versus this new test. And again, the other way you could do this, Bob, again, and it requires a work on your behalf. If you're using one feed to do this all, essentially you still have to isolate those particular products you want to run an A/B test on. You have to look at your back data. You have to go back 90 plus days to determine what the true performance was on those particular SKUs. You'd have to set up a completely separate shopping campaign and isolate those products within that campaign to run ads for. And then if you alter the products as they are, you again have to know how they performed previously with those, for example, with those titles, with those photos and those descriptions. And if you alter them, for example, you can do this with our app if you have the advanced modify add-on. Let's say those 10 products you filter out, you do your modifications to have different titles, different images, and different descriptions. You then have to measure the performance after the fact, after you've already made those modifications. So it takes a tremendous amount of work. And honestly, you may not see enough of a gain, or the gain might be so incremental that it may not necessarily be beneficial to run any kind of A/B test. It's not to say that you shouldn't or you can't do it, but when it comes down to it, it really kind of falls under the law of diminishing returns, in that the more input that you put into it, or too much input, for example, is less of a return you're going to get from it. I think that you should focus primarily on following best practices for title, structure, quality, product photos, optimizing your product descriptions, or front loading all the terms from your product titles in the first 150 characters of your product descriptions. And then what you really want to pay attention to is the data or the performance on those particular products. Do you have a positive return on it? Even if you have a strong return, for example, if you have a return on ad spend of 6x and that's profitable for you, is that truly profitable for you? You could have a 6 to 7 times return on product, but if you're not incorporating your product cost or your margins, even a high return on ad spend, you could still be losing money out in the end,
So, couple, because there's so many different ways these things can be managed. So do you have to be on the paid plan to add secondary feeds? And maybe you want to explain what that is as well, because I think I just raised a term. A lot of people are like, what?
Yeah, no, sure, of course. Yeah, and again, I'm going to get super technical here, but again, so let's just put it this way. Google only really allows for one primary feed. And let's say that your primary feed has 20 products in it, and all those products have unique product IDs. You can submit another feed, but you need to all those product IDs would need to be altered and be different to be considered almost like unique products in Google's eyes, right? To which case you could technically run those A/B tests that Bob had actually brought up. So can you do that with our app? You can. It's not suggested because you don't want to modify your primary feed and another feed in tandem. But let's say you have 20 products that you consistently always have inventory on. You can take those products, export them from our app at no additional cost, put them into a CSV file, modify the ID on those products, upload that file to Merchant Center, and just leave it in there, and then utilize that feed and those product IDs to run a separate campaign, or utilize that for another program, for example. That is at no additional cost, really.
Yeah, I think I actually phrased it wrong, which tells you how long it's been since I ran ads. I was thinking more of a supplemental feed
Yes.
To either provide secondary images, yep, or to tag products so that you can set up different types of ad groups and shop. I wouldn't go into too much detail. There's so many different ways to strategize a Google shopping campaign that's really beyond the scope of this conversation. But for somebody who wants to, for example, add additional images, or start and stop dates on a sale, or tag things so they know, if you got a big enough catalog, you probably have some items that you don't want to spend a lot per click because there's not enough margin in them. Mm-hmm. So you may want to adjust into groups by maximum bid and things like that. So
sure, of course. And again, you're right. There are so many different strategies, and I could probably take a whole day, honestly, of just going through what those strategies could possibly be. I mean, we do things very differently through our app and through our services. We manage all shopping campaigns at an item level or a product level, regardless of whether you're using some of those additional attributes to structure or group products together. Everything through our app or through our team is entirely on a single line item. So what you're referring now, you brought up the term supplemental feed. So it's essentially just that. It supplements the existing data, or it supplements or replaces the existing data within a primary feed. So to just really put it simply, you install our app, you submit a feed to Google, it's approved, you start running ads. Let's say that you don't necessarily want to use our app or an add-on in our app to modify this attributes called custom labels in Google, right? There are these attributes, custom labels 0 through 4, which are essentially you define a tag, like you said, for a particular product. So if I wanted to use custom label 0 and I tagged all of my I tagged all my products with a particular sale, and I could structure my campaign just on that particular custom label. You can take a supplemental feed, which doesn't have to be an API or anything like that. Essentially, you could use a Google Sheet, which is my recommendation. Pull down a Google Sheet. You always need the ID column. So you always need the product ID, so that way Google matches the modification to the proper product within your primary feed, and then you then use the supplemental feed and you build out the additional or modified attributes to supplement or alter the. So in an altering experience, let's say I have product titles and I don't like them natively and I want to alter them. I essentially create a supplemental feed in a Google Sheet. I have ID column ID and I have column title. And those IDs would be the matching products, and in the title field, I would fill in a custom title and to replace the existing title in my feed. Or for example, if I wanted to submit a attribute that's not natively in with my feed, for example, I wanted to add a particular custom label, I would then have custom label 0 as my column, and I would put in my custom value for that, which it supplements or adds that data to the existing feed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I had 2 more questions for you, unless somebody else drops another real good one. Number 1, the manufacturer center, and how does that differ, and how do we make that feed happen? And then the other one will be, you guys do offer managed services as do other agencies. What kind of spend level does it make sense to start looking at getting some professional assistance?
Sure, of course. So so to your first question, manufacturer center. It is pretty unique, and to put it simply, 99% of merchants and retailers don't necessarily need to be concerning themselves with manufacturer center. Manufacturer center is essentially made for the brand or the manufacturer of a product. So let's say you sell Nike products. Nike utilizes manufacturer center to supply its retail partners with updated product information and sales information that they could potentially utilize, to which then the retailer can ensure that their data is matching what Nike is telling them they have to advertise on. Where this tends to come into place, for example, Lori, is like map pricing, where you can only sell a product at a certain price, and you would essentially have to utilize manufacturer center to make sure that you're ingesting all the updated and accurate information from that particular brand. I don't have many merchants. I don't necessarily work with many merchants that are utilizing it right now. And
is it important to the brand if they want? I mean, is this a place where their merchants go to get new information? Or is this only there if they want to exercise control over that?
No, for really more for the first part. It's really just for the retail partners that need updated and more accurate information. Essentially, if something changes drastically with a particular manufacturer and they want to ensure that their retail partners are staying in tune with that, they would have to be utilizing manufacturer center to upkeep on that. But I haven't seen. It's a rare occasion I meet or speak with a merchant that actually needs to go through that process or utilize it in any way.
Okay.
And to your other question, as far as like when to seek out managed services or when to seek out advice. Again, many marketers and many companies just like ours, we offer complimentary consultations, demonstrations of our app and what we can do, an overview of our services. Even if you're running ads or running any type of programs on Microsoft or Google or Facebook, we can even run complimentary audits or reviews of your performance to kind of show you, and again, other marketers and agencies do this, to show you where we can potentially help and bring some benefit or grow your sales or improve your return on ad spend or balance out your wasted spend to your return on ad spend ratio. And in our case, in anybody's case, I don't necessarily think that there should be a spend limit on that. I would say that you should have a minimum of 60 to 90 days worth of advertising data so that any marketer or any company can make truly data-driven decisions about how they could potentially help you improve or grow. An example for us is a lot of we've kind of eliminated those barriers to entry for merchants. For example, if you're just going to utilize our feed tool, it's 100% free to use up to 10,000 SKUs. And then if you wanted, for example, you have more than that, let's say you have up to 100,000 SKUs, it's only $20 to utilize our app. Against some other services out there that might be in the hundreds to even $300+ to be able to utilize for that SKU count. And if you want to utilize our platform for campaign management, it also 100% free for up to $500 in ad spend, to which you can utilize our platform to manage and oversee your shopping ads, your Microsoft or Bing shopping ads, and also your Facebook product ads. And then all with free support and free guidance, free training on how to use our app. We're a people-first company, and we primarily want to focus and help people and companies grow. And we always stress that if anybody has any questions or wants to know how we could potentially help, and I think this goes to say for any merchant, any agency or company that you want to partnering with, is that you just want to ask the right questions. You want to gauge what they could potentially do for you and ensure that they're having that true, like a business conversation with you. They're not necessarily saying like, well, here's a report. This is what we think you should do right now. It should be more about, well, what are you doing? Tell me a little bit more about your business. How are you fulfilling orders? For example, how has COVID-19 affected your business as of late? So you want to have a good amount of historical data so that any company or agency can kind of look back and determine what's the best course of action. And then beyond that, just have an open mind to what different companies and organizations can do for you in the realm of product advertising, for example.
I'm going to issue a caveat because I just saw it. In fact, it happened to this guy twice. He forgot to make sure the second agency didn't do it. Don't let your agencies hijack your data. You have existing Google Analytics information. And it's become commonplace, especially with lower priced firms, to insist they use their Google Analytics account. And what you end up with is a big hole in your historical data. So there is no reason why they can't use your existing data, and you want to keep that continuity. So any agency that's going to hijack your data is probably not one you want to work with. So,
yes. And I'll second that for sure. Many marketing agencies and companies out there might require you to utilize and I'll put the example of a Google Ads account, might require to use a Google Ads account that they control. What you always want to look for and who you want to partner with are companies and agencies that don't impose those types of restrictions on you. They don't hijack or take hostage your own assets or accounts. Your Google Merchant Center account, your Google Ads account, your Google Analytics account, all of those should be yours. And the company or agency that you partner with will simply request access to be able to view that data or optimize or manage campaigns for you within your own account.
That historical data is learning information. So even if with your ads account, your next, I mean, I've seen ad agencies where you bring in a second agency, and instead of paying attention to what's already known that they can improve upon, they just wipe it all out and start
Yeah.
over. And granted, I've also seen some accounts where that's the best approach, but most of the time you have some really good data there that should be expanded upon and revised and not wiped out. So, and you certainly want to know where your history was so that you can grow and not keep repeating the same mistakes. So,
yes, absolutely.
So, anybody else got anything out there?
Did we miss any? I don't think so. I'm going to just cycle through here and make sure we got through everybody's questions. From Steven, basic process of adding one's products to Google Shopping search function. Is it what's free and what's cost? I think we kind of covered all that. Kirby, not knowing your fees, at what sales volume does it make sense for a Shopify startup to begin using your services? Kirby, if you're going to install our app, it's, again, I think I went over some of the free options. Everything starts out for free. And if you wanted to discuss managed services, it's a complimentary overview. So you can, of course, contact our staff, and at least we can give you an idea of what it's gonna cost you. I think we covered Kirby's other question. I think we covered Joyce's question about how to upload a feed to Merchant Center. Joyce, of course, just install our app. If you can contact our staff for assistance with that.
Nicole has a good one here where although I think we sort of answered it, which was on shopping actions. Do they get sent to your website?
That's actually good. So Shopping Actions is a hosted environment. So essentially it's just like Amazon. So all the checkout and everything, all the purchasing is occurring on a Google hosted checkout. So it's essentially what they call like buy on Google. And if you look at the search results, just for example, just go into Google, go to the shopping tab, search for a particular product. And if you see shopping ads at the top and you're going to see a filtering tool on the left side, you might actually see a filter element for buy on Google. And that's going to sort through just the shopping actions results. And essentially the shopper goes to Google Shopping, it goes to the product, it goes to the Google hosted checkout, they purchase the product there. And then the order or that purchase is then is actually calculated within your Merchant Center account, and then you then have to match that to your SKUs, your products in your e-commerce, Shopify, whatever store, to which then you have to go out and fulfill and get that order out to the shopper. I'm not seeing too many other ones. I think that covers everybody's questions, which is great.
Well, thank you everybody for showing up, especially those who hung out to the bitter end.
Yeah, for sure. It was a lot to go through, and I'm glad we were to cover some of the questions that were kind of outside the realm of the original topic of free Google Shopping listings. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can live chat with our team for assistance and learning more about this. You can check out our blog at blog.salesandorders.com. We've published a number of articles on this. We're working extremely close with our Google Senior Partner Management team to learn more about these emerging trends, the emerging technologies, especially about some of the reporting that's going on with these free listings. So again, don't hesitate to reach out or check out some of our resources for additional assistance. And of course, you can always live chat and ask for me directly if you'd like.
Or I can give them your contact information and let them torture you directly.
Yeah, sure.
They all seem to know how to find me.
What else better do we have to do, Lori? I'm sitting here with my buddy Fishy. He's my only friend in this pandemic at this point. I
was gonna say, if you're not busy, I'll put you to work.
Oh, too busy. But it's. But I'm hoping that, in all honesty, and I just want to end with this final thought here, is I hope everybody out there is staying healthy and staying safe and remaining informed wherever you are in the world. It doesn't matter. This is an unprecedented time. There is good news. I know that the world is beginning to reopen a little bit. I know that here locally, we're already talks about our local officials about parts of the economy reopening. I'm over here in New York, so there are parts of New York that are going to finally really begin to reopen. Maybe not where I am to begin with, but it's certainly some promising news all around. And again, I hope everybody's staying safe. I hope your family and your loved ones are healthy, and that your business is seeing a lift, because we know that although the e-commerce industry was not immune to coronavirus and COVID-19, it certainly saw more of a positive impact than I think a negative impact. And I thank everybody for joining me today, joining Lori and me for this wonderful Q&A.
Thank you very much. Take care, and thank you for the quick setup.
Yeah,
all right, we'll talk to you later.
All right, everybody, have a good one.